Welcome to Bring Home the Bacon podcast, where we discuss small business owners, entrepreneurs, and that wonderful entrepreneurship and the spirit behind it. I'm your host, Alan Bennett, and today's guest, we have Tom Kirkham. And Tom has a great story for all of us to learn from. And hopefully, between the two of us, we can have a great conversation about how wonderful it is to be an entrepreneur. So, welcome to the show, Tom.
Oh, I'm glad to be here, Alan. And by the way, it's a great name for a podcast.
Well, I can tell you, I'm a food guy. So I spent 20 years in the food industry. And there's this, and I love bacon, right? So there's that saying of, I mean, I literally would bring home the bacon in more ways than one when I had my meat market opened up.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, who doesn't like bacon, right? And cracklings and pork belly, all of that. Yeah, it's awesome.
Well, I'm glad we got two good old Southern boys on the show today.
No kidding. It doesn't happen enough.
Oh, well, hey, listen, speaking about Southern boys, tell me a little bit about yourself. Give us some background about who Tom is and how you came to where this crossroads you are in your life right now.
That's a good question. I think it would be helpful to start off with growing up as a kid in the South, various states in the South. But my family, both sides of the family, multi-generational, were civil servants, especially back in the days you worked a job all your life. You worked there for 30 or 40 years or whatever. And, that's what you did. It was too risky to go
Mhm.
out on your own. And it took me, well, it didn't take me years to get over it. I didn't get over it until I'd already started my business. And the reason for that is I found myself suddenly laid off. So it's the
Mhm.
typical E-Myth book story. If you haven't read the E-Myth, I absolutely recommend it. But basically it takes the concept of this myth of entrepreneurialism. For most of the people, it end up being a business owner, being an entrepreneur.
Mhm.
They didn't get there by design. They got there because they needed a job or they got tired of working for the man, and it
Mhm.
looks so easy, right? I'll just hang my own shingle out. I'll just do what I've been doing. Maybe you're an accountant, you're working for a big accounting firm, and I want to be in control of my own deal. But like I said, and like the book talks a lot about, is you don't really know what you're getting into. There's a whole lot more to being an entrepreneur and an owner than it is for doing a job, fulfilling a role inside of a company. But I found myself unemployed. I have no college degree. I went to college for economics, of all things. I had a big love of Wall Street, and I've been trading stocks since I was a teenager. And so I was fascinated with economics, but my job got in the way. And then later, three attempts at college, the business got in the way. So that was the last time I went to school. And that's the story. I needed a job, and that's the only way to do it. And rather than moving, I was in the software industry, and I'm in a little small town in Arkansas. There's not a whole lot of jobs for people that are in the software business. So I had no choice but to start up an IT company. That's what my skills were. That's what my hobbies were, and I'd been kind of involved with that just from a software perspective, but also, I was a hobbyist. So that was the first deal with becoming an entrepreneur, starting the business out of my house. I'm bootstrapping. I don't have a job, don't have any money, and that's the way it went. But I knew I wanted to build it bigger because I'd been involved with a couple of companies at a higher level, managed 150 or so in one, and then the software company was about 35 or 40 before it finally failed during the .com days. And so I wanted it to be a little bit bigger, but as is typical, you're wearing every single hat in your business. You've got to be a jack of all trades. You've got to understand accounting and finance and sales and marketing, and you're doing all of these things from, in my case, it was setting up a server to, paying, the taxes, keeping accounts receivable straight, making sure the bills get paid as best I could. And so it's very nerve-wracking. And that went on for about a dozen years. And I had a lot of tragedy in my life in that, try to make this short. My wife became ill with multiple sclerosis, and it wasn't the good one. It was about 5% of people that get MS. It's nothing can be done. It's quick, a year or two. And during the 2 years that I was taking care of her, I got diagnosed with spinal infection and 3 cancers.
Hmm.
And then the capper was I was placed on an ISIS kill list, which is a
Wait,
topic for,
what?
yeah, I'm on an ISIS kill list. And that was the capper of all of those things, that 2 year period. My doctor said that I've never had a patient with as much tragedy in that short period of time as you. And fortunately, I'd hired a friend of mine, and I knew how he was. He wasn't hired because he was a friend, it's because I knew him and I knew what he was
Hmm.
capable of. So I had hired him to do sales for the company. We'd grown it to a point,
Hmm.
and it was still well under $1 million, but I wanted it to get bigger. And I brought him on his sales, but he had management experience. He had managed a Best Buy here in town. And so while I was taking care of me and my wife, trying to get our bodies fixed, he kind of took control of the company. And it allowed me for the very first time to take a step back and then start thinking about working on the company rather than working in the company, right?
Hmm.
I'm not setting up servers. And I was very lucky in that regard. If you have a choice between luck, timing, and brilliance, take luck first, timing second, brilliance third, and never confuse the three. Don't attribute your genius because of luck or timing. It's a big mistake.
Wise
And
words.
yes, yes, sometimes, but I also believe you create your own luck, right?
Mhm.
You put in place things that tend to make you lucky. Lucky people have that. In fact, that's one of the interview questions. Whenever we look for, we add staff and talent to the company,
Mhm.
we want people that feel lucky or they consider themselves lucky. So we ask them that, do you feel lucky? And the ones that say, well, I have a tendency to think that I create my own luck. And well, that's probably a good candidate. But I took some time off. I did some traveling, various places, and a lot of beach time. Uh, that it was just my place to go.
Mhm.
When I need to empty my mind and just concentrate and reflect on what do I want to do with this company. So it was kind of like a reboot, right? It
Mhm.
was my second leg of being an entrepreneur. It's like starting all over again for me.
Mhm.
So I started thinking about what's it going to take to really build this into something worthwhile, and why do I want to do this? What's the purpose? And so I started thinking about things like culture and servant leadership, stakeholder capitalism, and those are just some of the things that I said I'm going to embed this into the culture. I've got a president that's chief operating officer as well, so he's running it. And then I said, what we really need is somebody that knows something about marketing. So I spent a couple of 3 years really learning marketing.
Mhm.
And that started, adding sales into the
Mhm.
pipeline and started building it. That's working on the business rather than in the business. Allows you to, set that vision going forward. And then I knew that my role as the founder and the CEO title, it was really to establish that culture because those of you that are Peter Drucker fans, you may be
Yeah.
familiar with the quote that culture eats strategy for breakfast. So,
Yeah.
you may say, well, we've got to set a strategy. We've got to have a
Yeah.
business plan.
Yeah.
And what you really should be concentrating on is embedding into that culture values and what your company's mission is, and work hard each and every day
Mm.
to make sure everybody buys into the concept and reinforce it, because that makes all the strategic decisions easier to fulfill. It makes it easier to overcome if you make a mistake, because you will. You will make a lot of mistakes. A college education may be expensive, but believe me, my real life education cost me far more than a master's in economics would have. So,
Well said.
yeah, and so I chalk those up to, the mistakes of time and money and energy. Okay, that's an education. Let's look positive upon this and learn from the mistake and put processes and systems in place. Just keep them in your head. You don't have to write them down necessarily,
Yeah.
but keep them in your head to make sure you don't keep making the same mistake over and over again.
Mm. Yeah, it's funny you talked about Michael Gerber's book and talking about hiring. I got a short story to share with you. This is when to support what you said about employees and finding the people that have the strengths, and that I had learned the hard way, like you did, on how to hire. And this is how I learned my lesson. This was in early 2000s. I don't remember when it was, 2001, 2, 3, somewhere around in there. And I had a position open for a person that was a prep cook. And this was in the catering side of my business. And this guy comes in and he was well dressed, and he said, I've got 12 years of experience. And on the form, we want to know the last 3 places you worked and how long. And the guy interviewed well. I said, well, I'll take a look at your resume. And I would have hired the guy right then, but I had a system that, I don't jump at the first shiny object. Go home, sleep on it, read through the resume, and then decide if you're going to move forward with this person or keep looking. So I looked at the resume, and his last 3 jobs, the restaurant burned down. The other job, the owner was arrested. And then the last job he worked at, this is when that tornado came through downtown Little Rock and took out that Waffle House. He worked at that Waffle House. They got hit by a tornado. So the last, you talking about unlucky. And I
No
was
kidding.
like, I told the girls up front, I said, if that guy comes back, get him out of here. I don't want my wife leaving me. I don't want the store to burn down. I said, this guy's got a black cloud. And so then at that point is when I was like, you know what? I'm not asking the right questions to find the right people. I gotta figure out what I need and ask the right questions in order to find the right people. That was my tough lesson.
Yeah. Well, it's part of culture, I guess. We believe, a lot of our people are technically skilled, network administrators and
Yeah.
security specialists and all these different things. And I hate to say this, but that industry, there's sometimes you come across people with egos.
Mm.
Sometimes they're abrasive. I guess it's true with all businesses, but they have toxic behavior problems and things like that. So in these questions that we ask in the interview process, they're designed to get them talking about their personal lives and trying
Mm.
to get them talking about their vision. This is my favorite question. You're having a dinner party. You can invite 3 people, or you have to invite 3 people. They can be living or dead, fictional or non-fictional, real life,
Mm.
but they can't be a love interest or a family member. Who are they? Who's the 3 people? And what are you going to serve them? And that gets their creative juices flowing, and it gives you something to talk about. I mean, I can look at their resume and see if they have the skills for the most part. Now, we'll do a technical interview whenever we think it's necessary.
Yeah.
But the main thing is we can train those technical skills that they may be lacking, but we have to make sure it's number one, somebody that is really customer focused and like pleasing people, but it's got to be somebody we enjoy working with.
Mm.
And because if we fail there, then our culture is not going to be right. We're going to end up hiring people that we don't want to work with. They're possibly going to be toxic, and everything else just starts breaking down from that point. So I decided to invest. It's a lot. It's a lot of money to invest in people for them not to work out.
Yeah.
So then, if we make a decision to hire somebody, we explain to them what they should expect from us. And
Mhm.
one of those commitments from us is that we're going to do our damnedest to make sure you're successful in this job.
Mhm.
If you fail in this job, it's going to be your fault, probably. I'm not saying we're infallible, but we are going to invest time, money, and energy to make you successful in this job. And that's where the servant leadership component comes in. And we don't make too many hiring mistakes. We still do. It's nothing's perfect. There's no perfect system out there. But it started when we started putting a conscious effort behind it. It really it really improved our hiring success because they understand the commitment going in. And so we end up with people that genuinely want to work there. It helps them get a foothold on the culture, and it just everything should, and for the most part, it does. It falls in place.
Yeah. So share with the audience a little bit more. Let's kind of take that path a little bit. So my day job, isn't isn't having fun on a podcast. I like doing this to help people, right? And that's why you're here. But my day job is as I'm a certified exit planner. So I help businesses create value so that they can sell when they're ready to sell. And I bet you I'm gonna spitball it here and say 80% of the businesses that I work with don't have that culture you're talking about. So let's take that path for just a second because I've seen businesses where the owners were taking home between two and $300,000 in profit, taking it home, but it was an unsellable business because everything depended on them. The business wasn't fun. They had lots of problems, and then it was just a whirlwind, a carousel of employees coming and going out of there. So let's talk about when you implemented that with your business. What did that do for you as a business owner? How did that impact you, and how did that impact your profitability?
Oh, wow. Well, consciously, we didn't have profits for a few years because I was building it to scale. That was done intentionally. And I was fortunate enough through other interest of mine that I'd built up over the years. I didn't have to have a salary. And I know that's different for that's rare. That's rare.
Mhm.
But I'd already started the business when I did need money. I was dead broke. I had to, gosh, I can remember once or twice I had to cash in all my change to make payroll. You know, those old typical stories, and they're
Mhm.
true. At least it was for me. But that reflection time, that year or so that I kind of took the time off, and beach time and whatever else,
Mhm.
uh, it really it started evolving. That well, the whole foundation
Mhm.
to really build something to last, like Jim Collins' book, Built to Last,
Mhm.
and the old Boeing culture, and
Yeah.
and all of this. If you really invest the time and energy into that foundation,
Mhm.
it makes the house bigger, stronger, better. And then you start finding yourself, oh, now I have time to work on this set of procedures, and building this business maybe to sell at a later point
Mm.
in time. You start developing what you want to do with the rest of your life,
Mhm.
and how what you want to do later. I think I answered your question there.
Yes. Yeah.
But I'm probably leaving a lot out. But one of the things that we're working on right now is building a recipe book, right?
Mhm.
Standard operating procedures, the how we do everything that we do. And my number one job, and I encourage this with everyone in the company, especially leadership and management, is you need to work every day to work yourself out of a job.
Mm.
You're going to be fine,
Yeah.
but you should be mentoring everybody and serving everyone under you,
Mhm.
and everyone you work with.
Yeah.
I'm a conductor in this symphony, and I need the best person I can find to be violin chair one,
Mm. Yeah.
and everybody that I can find. I'm just the conductor. And if everybody in the company understands their role and what they're bringing to the table,
Mhm.
then if everybody starts considering themselves conductor of their own world, it just creates a machine. Did I do it great? No, it's a never ending battle. And sometimes I'm surprised when everything's running perfectly well, but then I get a quick kick in the ass, and then I find out that, okay, well, it wasn't running as good as I thought it was.
Yeah.
So I got to work. I got to go back. Culture. I got a culture problem right now, and but it's much smaller than what it would be.
Yeah.
It's not chaos. It's
Mm.
chaos versus control. You know, the
Yes.
old Get Smart TV series. Well, you're not that old, so you probably don't. But it's you got to go from chaos to control, and you
Yeah.
got to provide a great work environment where people just, you know, if you've got a lot of turnover, there's a
Mm.
reason for it, and you can probably fix it.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a sure sign that you've
Mm.
got chaos.
Yeah.
If you have toxic people in your company, you got to get rid of them. If you can't fix them, you got to get rid of them.
Yeah.
I've tried fixing them. I've had very limited success on fixing them. I'm not saying it'll always fail, but toxic people can destroy a company no matter
Yeah.
how hard you work at it. Those are just some of the things that I've learned. You know, and some of that is from some of it's my economics background. You know, you don't
Mm.
really get into management and leadership in economics, but when you start thinking at things of a macro level and a micro level, how do you
Mm.
tweak that production? You know, if you're manufacturing, how do you tweak that production line to maximize
Right.
the cost of the product that you're manufacturing, right? You know, so those principles can be applied to lots of different things.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I've been able to do throughout my life is to connect dots. And how did we get here?
Mm.
And you look back, and then you can connect all the dots, and all of a sudden, you know, what you find is you've been working a process.
Mhm.
If you're successful, you've been working a process,
Yeah.
and that's a hell of an education. Yeah,
Ye-
and it's enjoyable.
Yes,
It's
it is.
truly enjoyable when you got things running like they, you know, real
Yeah.
smooth.
So let's take a step back to the early days.
Hmm.
This is one of my favorite questions I always ask. Tell me about that pivotal moment. You know, we all, as business owners starting out, everybody loses sleep, everybody works 100-hour weeks type, you know, there's that life in the early stages. We don't make any money. We have this time money type thing that we all go through. And there's somebody always comes up with a great, unique story about this thing that happened in their business that almost did them in, and they persevered through that. Do you have a story to share about perseverance and overcoming that?
Well, I can remember on one of the payrolls that I couldn't make, we just lost a big client that we'd staffed up for. So I'm faced with laying people off, uh, trying my best not to,
Mhm.
and you know, raiding the piggy bank to make payroll once or twice, and then running up a bunch of credit card bills to keep it going, and not
Yeah.
laying anyone off. And we managed to land another gig, you know, land another deal and bring in some money and things like that. I was real diversified when I first started. I would do anything, write
Mhm.
software for people, network admin. This was before cybersecurity really became the hot ticket in this industry. You know, that's back when the hackers were doing it for fun instead of profit, and politics and everything else.
Yeah.
Uh, but I would have to say that outside of that, I really can't think of. You're really asking, you- is this about the doubt, right?
Yeah.
Am I really capable of doing this?
Yes.
And I never had any doubt. I know it
Mhm.
sounds probably a little arrogant to say that, but I knew I was capable of it. And I wasn't going to let it fail. I could have very easily, and then after the dot com, you know, the industry recovered from that. I could have gone and gotten a job, but I found out that I liked having control of my own time
Mhm.
uh, enough that I was willing to sacrifice income for it. And of course, since then, I'd be the worst employee in the world, but I'm unemployable now. But there, there was just so many, and I don't dwell on those things. I hope I learn from them, but I don't want to dwell on it.
Mhm.
But you do have to have that resilience, in overcoming adversity. One of the things I went down real heavily during my reflection point in life was I got into Stoicism,
Mm.
such as Marcus Aurelius and Seneca and modern writer Ryan Holiday. The obstacle is the way, right? Yeah, some obstacles you might be able to go around or go under, but in most cases, sometimes you just got to hit them straight on, battle through them, because that's going to make you a better person and much more resilient and much tougher. Banks are going to turn you down. It's happened to me, especially in service business, and restaurant business is tough, man. I got kudos for that. That's a tough business. Everybody wants to own a restaurant, but then they find out, oh, wow, this is really hard work. So yeah,
Yeah.
kudos to you. So,
Yeah.
uh, but in reality, it all is, if you're an accountant and you want to hang out your own shingle, well, you got to dig up clients.
Yeah.
And stealing them from your current employer, you better think long and hard before you do that, because is that ethical?
Yeah.
Is that going to serve for a good cultural foundation for your
Mhm.
accounting practice? Um,
Right.
but it's different for everybody, and
Yeah.
those are just some of the things that have helped me get through life.
Mhm.
Stoicism did, for certain. Um, whenever I was going through all that tragedy, I just woke up every day. What do I have to do now?
Yeah.
What is my job today? Okay, I got to do this. I got to go get a infusion. I had to have infusions every day for 3 months in the hospital.
Mhm.
I had to go to the hospital for 2 to 3 hours every single day, at the exact same time. 5 minutes late, the doctor was mad at me. So, and then I had to go and take care of my wife on top of that, in
Mhm.
addition to dealing with all my specialties that I had problems with. So, you got to develop some sort of
Yeah.
philosophy that's going to harden you,
Yeah.
not personality wise,
Right.
just be stronger. And for me, it was Stoicism had a lot to do with that.
Well, I wish back in the day, I'll quickly share my version. I didn't have stoicism. I didn't think of that one as an option. What I did was I would go home at night at the end of the workday and I would turn on Jerry Springer. And you talking about people with some problems. And I'd get that victim mentality and I would want to shake it. And I'm like, you know what? I think I'm gonna watch a little Jerry Springer because my life is not that not that bad. I wish I'd have done stoicism instead, but it
Well, there's
worked.
a yeah, well, if you read Seneca, there's a lot of depressing parts of their lives too. Yeah, Seneca was lucky and fortunate to be rich. Marcus Aurelius was the leader of Rome, and so forth. But there's a lot of yeah. I started in college originally with philosophy,
Okay.
and somebody said, "What are you going to do? Open up your little philosophy shop when you get when after you graduate?" And I go, "Oh yeah, I can't make a living off this." And
Yeah.
it ended up being economics was about the same thing. You're going to open up your own little economic shop? No, I can get a
Right.
job on Wall Street. I can do that, or
Yeah.
just become a teacher in college. I can do that.
Yeah.
So, but
Well,
yeah, go
let's
ahead.
let's take a turn to mentors.
Hmm.
Share some stories of who you had as a mentor, how that worked for you.
I really don't like that word.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it just
Expand.
doesn't. It and this is me, okay? And
Okay.
if anybody out there has one, or if you are a mentor for somebody, or you like it, I get it. I get it. I understand it. But for me, it implied some sort of subservient or patriarchal relationship.
Hmm.
And I view both people that I've worked for, friends that I value and were very successful as entrepreneurs.
Hmm.
I valued all of the wisdom and the experience that I gained from them, and I sought their advice. So I guess I did everything that you would with a mentor, right?
Mhm.
But I took that and sprinkled it with other things that I'd learned uh, over the years. And I read a lot of business biographies, Elon Musk and Steve Jobs. And I've spent a lot of time with Elon Musk in meetings. I don't know him personally, so I don't mean to
Mhm.
imply that. But I went to meetings where he was talking about Tesla and why they're doing what they're doing and why the public is wrong about this and all these different things. And you get into their heads and you really start thinking about how they think and how can you apply that. I don't want to emulate Steve Jobs or Elon Musk. I just want to take the parts and the pieces that they were good at that fit my own style and what I'm trying to accomplish. And that I found that very useful for me, right? Uh, Elon Musk works everybody 60, 80 hours a week. I don't like that. Uh, Steve Jobs was very mercurial, but he had tremendous marketing and vision and sense of style and
Mhm.
quality that was just made Apple what it is. Um, and that's the way I tend to view it. So I kind of get the willies a little bit when somebody
Mhm.
uses the word mentor.
Mhm.
To me, they're providing servant leadership, right?
Yeah.
That's what it is to me. And I've had some great ones over the years, some great what I consider friends and everything like that. And it kind of gets into a debate, really. You've
Mhm.
got that great relationship with somebody that you may consider a mentor when you can debate. Why did you do that? And what were you thinking? Well, yeah,
Mhm.
what about this? And well, here's my angle from it. And they can really help you work through something that you may not take their advice, but you certainly have a clearer idea of what your path is
Mhm.
or what the decision may be. Over the years, I've kept a collection of quotes that I've used a few today.
Yeah.
And I got inspired by Donald Rumsfeld. And he'd created a thing called Rumsfeld Rules. And you can find it on the internet. And I think at the time it was like 30 or 40 different quotations that it served his needs. And so I started doing that about 30 years ago, maybe 40, about 30 years ago. And now it's well over 100 of them. And I use them, I sprinkle them out here and there, I review them, and then I use them when necessary. Uh, for example, Dwight Eisenhower once said, if you can't figure out a solution to a problem, make the problem bigger. And
Mm.
you'd be
Yeah.
shocked how many times I've used that one. I said, wait a minute, I can't figure this out. Let's make it bigger. Let's enlarge this problem. And all of a sudden, you're doing a little bit more strategic fixing than
Mhm.
just fixing the problem or the band-aiding it, or
Right.
you're medicating the symptom. It's getting to first principles sometimes,
Yeah.
and I'm also a believer in not necessarily following the crowd. I had every bit of my family and friends saying, like, crazy for going in your business for yourself. You know, you got to have a steady job. My father could have had his own, he was a civil engineer, worked for the federal government all of his life,
Mhm.
and he never made real money,
Mhm.
and he could have easily gone into debt for $1 million and been a very successful contractor. He had that kind of talent and skill, but he said, "No, I just want a steady paycheck," and he was happy.
Yeah.
He was happy. He didn't want to take that risk, and I get it.
Yeah.
I understand.
Yeah.
But some part of you wants to take the chance, and nothing really big happens without taking risk.
Mhm.
We all take risk. It's a
Mhm.
cliche, but it's true. There's a risk in everything you do. It's how risk tolerant are you, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, there's three categories. You've kind of touched on them, maybe not intentionally, but the three different categories that I see when I'm dealing with business owners are the craftsmen, right? The
Mhm.
pie makers. I make the best pie ever, and I just want to make my little pie. And then you've got what you were describing just now, the freedom fighters. The freedom they're after that freedom, and then you got the mountain climbers. The mountain climbers are the one that they want to open this business up, and once I get this business going, open another business, and they're those serial entrepreneurs, So that's kind of I try to fit people into three categories. I'm a freedom fighter,
Yeah.
It's all about that independence. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you want to be your own, if you want to own your own business, but you still want to be the watchmaker or the pie maker,
Mhm.
there's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
You better surround yourself with the right management team, and you can outsource fractional CFOs. You can
Mhm.
get a good accountant, and of course have a good assortment of mentors or advisors. And that's kind of what I did to help us scale and to go bigger and bigger.
Mhm.
I'm not a pie maker. I'm more of a conductor,
Mhm.
but if but there's a lot of different ways to make it work. You look at a dental office, the dentist, they're dentists. Doctors are doctors. They're
Yeah.
not business people. And the most successful ones in a small practice are the ones that have great office management skills.
Mhm.
They've hired a good office manager that does the day to day, and
Yeah.
it makes them better with their patients, and their patients come back more and more. And so, if you can figure out what would truly make you happiest in your
Yeah.
business, just fill in the gaps with experts. You're going to have to pay, right? And this is something I learned the hard way. You look at a site like Fiverr or Upwork for these gig workers,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
Sometimes we have to have a project done. It's a one-off deal. Well, I learned really quickly is the more money you pay and the higher their rating is, the more likely that project is going to be really good and you're going to get what you want. So we immediately look at their ratings. Anybody that's, if it's a 1 to 5 scale, I want 4.5 or higher. And
Mhm.
I really don't care what they charge. If we get a 5 across the board and everybody else is charging $50 an hour and this one person's doing it for 125, I'll probably hire the 125.
Yeah.
And that's another little thing that I learned the hard way. But it's not about being cheap. It's about being right.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you and I could probably go an hour on the difference between cost and price.
Oh yeah, and in the IT business, and I know you know this, but because you look at all sorts of different businesses, but in the IT business, one of our biggest challenges uh, in the smaller companies that we
Mm.
serve is really getting them to change that mind shift from IT as an
Mm.
expense to IT as an investment.
Yeah.
Because I talked to a guy, I think he was treasury management. Okay. I'm
Mhm.
making
Yep.
serious money dealing with serious amounts of money. And we were just talking before I was doing a CLE or something, one of those educational webinars for
Mm.
their group. And we got to talking about computers, and he goes, "Oh my gosh, I just bought a new laptop because my other one was 7 or 8 years old. And I can't believe how much faster they are." And I go, "Okay, now how much money did it cost you to squeak another $50 of value out of that 7 or 8 year old laptop?" Yeah, it's a mind shift.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now people kind of get the security thing because that could be a serious attack, could be a catastrophic, fatal impact on their business. But when it comes to IT investing, especially in the smaller business, say under 50 people, it's really, we have to bring them along and say, we
Mm.
know benchmarks. We know what your budget should be for these
Mm.
things. And if you're way underperforming or way underspending what your peers spend, you've got problems.
Mm.
You are not maximizing that IT investment to get that return on investment. And it is an investment.
Yeah.
It positively affects the bottom line each and every day if it's done properly. And so if you got 5 accountants in your office and you're
Yeah.
running your desktops or your laptops into the ground, do the math on how much that's costing you. a 10 or 20% impact on productivity. Heck, a 5%, you know?
If they start
Don't
out
be
a
cheap.
sentence,
Don't be cheap on computers.
yeah. If they start out a sentence, if I have to reboot this thing one more time, that ought to tell you something.
Oh yeah. Or yeah. Or well, I can't reboot right now because it takes too long. You know, oh my gosh, really? Don't tell me you're spinning up a mechanical hard drive in that dinosaur. You
Oh,
know,
that's great.
there's a better path to happiness.
Uh,
Any good car mechanic is not going to go to Harbor Freight to buy all of his tools, right?
no,
No dig against Harbor Freight, and I think you know what I'm saying.
I know what you're
They
saying.
serve their purpose, but they're going to be buying Snap-on or some other high quality
Yes.
tool because that's their deal. And of course, in our business, it is too. So I usually, if I go 2 years on a laptop, it's
Yeah.
pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And we do that with everybody in the business. Everybody in our business has 34-inch monitors or bigger,
Mm,
dual monitors, triple monitors. We
mm,
put everything in place to not only make them as productive as possible, but to make their lives easier and more enjoyable
mm.
and all of that. I know the numbers. You know,
Yeah.
you add a second monitor to a computer system, and you got a 20% productivity boost
Yeah.
in office type jobs.
Right.
And it's like a 10 or something if you put a third monitor or you go to a great big monitor, and it doesn't matter what you're paying that person, it's worth it
Mm.
to throw another
Yeah.
$150 monitor right next to the other one. And those are the kind of things that we educate for that return on investment on IT spending, you know. So
Yeah. So we're getting close to the end. And so to wrap up, give us a little bit of an idea of where you're taking your company. What does it look like 5 and 10, 15 years down the road? What does that journey look like for you?
well, in 3 years, 2 years ago, I developed a 3-year vision for the company and what I wanted it to look like, how big I wanted it, what kind of clients we have. And we're about halfway through that cycle. I doubt that we're going to hit it. We were initially trying to grow 10x in 3 years. I know that's hard to believe, but I know
Yeah.
I've known people that have done it, and not in a business that's just going, just blasting off. But what we did manage to do was set what I think is a really good growth rate. 3 years ago, we grew 24% year over year. 2 years ago, it was roughly 35%. This last year, we hit over 54% year over year growth. So, and that growth is accelerating. And the original target date was December of 2025, year end 2025. I wanted to be 10x from the point that I created this vision and describe what the culture looked like and what the office looked like and what our clients look like and all these
Mhm.
different things. And even though we're not probably going to hit that without doing acquisitions, we're going to get close enough. There's always these 2 or 3 different growth stages that you go through.
Mhm.
Right now, I think the middle growth stage is where we're at in our industry. We're bigger than 80 to 90% of our peers because almost all of people that are in MSP or IT management services
Mhm.
and cybersecurity services, they're all under $1 million a year business. About 80% the last time I heard. So where we're going as a company is we're looking at acquisitions, strategic acquisitions, geographically limited right now. I don't want to do my first acquisition with a company in Florida. I want it to be within a 150-mile radius because of that culture. You
Mhm.
can't, we've had remote workers. Kenzie, who you've spoken with, she works remotely. She works in Honolulu. And so we understand how much work it is to bridge remote people and how
Mhm.
much harder it is, especially when cultural things come up, how much harder it is to make sure that you stay true to that. So I want it to be real close and nearby.
Mhm.
Ultimately, I'm setting the company up for the employees to take it over, and I want it to continue on. I want it to be built to last. And I'm trying my best to work myself out of a job, and I'm trying to do. I enjoy doing interviews and doing webinars, and speaking in person's my favorite. But I don't get many of those. It's everybody's cutting back on travel. That COVID, everybody, hey, we can do this on Zoom,
Technology.
Yeah, this really does work. But we're seeing more and more people realize that that in-person stuff is important too. So, but after that, I hope they take it and make it even bigger and better than I ever dreamed. I mean, there's probably maybe somebody in the company can do a better job than I have. And that would really make me happy. So I'm not opposed to selling, and this is no secret to anybody in the company. We're going to do what's best for everybody in the business, because we have a lot of options holders in the company. So they have some ownership, and I did it that way purposely because there's a lot of M&A activity in this industry, especially. And, you'd be foolish to not entertain offers. I mean, and I had to be prepared. So what if somebody came in and really was able to pay what I think the company's worth? And so I started thinking about what's the ramifications for everybody there. And so I put the options thing in place, not for only that reason, but for other reasons as well. But that goes back to culture.
Right.
It's about laying that foundation. It's not about me. It's really about you guys, and what makes you happy and fulfilled, and money can't buy happiness. And it's about the best thing it can do is buy time.
Right.
If you're wearing 15 different hats and you hate accounting, well, find a bookkeeper or get you an accountant and pay them, and concentrate on what you love to do. And then try to work your way into a great position to where you love going to work every day.
Yeah. I've never met a small business owner that said, I can't wait to work another 75 hours next week. I hadn't met one yet.
Yeah. But you'll find that it gets easier. It should.
Yeah.
If it doesn't, you need to ask yourself, what is going wrong here?
Right. Reach out for help.
What am I missing? And I'll tell you this, you've got to be a lifelong learner, and I don't care what you do for a living, who you are, but especially as an entrepreneur. I got a friend of mine that's got this thing called stealing genius. And he's a marketing guy, but it can be applied to a lot of different parts of life. And sometimes you see something and you go, wait a minute, how do I make that work in my business? And it could be something totally unrelated, but or alien thinking, and as an entrepreneur, your brain should never shut off. You've always got to be thinking about stuff. You're watching a baseball game. What are their systems and their procedures and their policies? You already know the rules, probably. Well, how are they picking the best lineup, and the batting strategy, and just all of these different things? You can use those principles. It's around you all the time. So just lifelong learning, and business books. Golly, there's something in every one of them.
Yeah. We've hit a couple of them. We talked about E-Myth, and there's E-Myth Revisited. 10X is easier than 2X. There's several books. There's lots of resources out there. Just look.
Yes, absolutely. Read the reviews, and get you a Kindle, carry it with you on the beach. You've got all your books right there.
Have you read the book Trusted Leader?
No, I haven't.
Oh, I would strongly recommend that one. David Horsager's Trusted Leader.
I'll make a note of that.
Yeah. Oh, it's in the way that book is it's in story form. The first probably half or 2/3 of it is a story that goes along, and then he starts, the data behind why that story exists.
Yeah, well, it's the same way with the E-Myth.
Yeah.
you know. And actually, these two, I always get it wrong because I'm reversed. These two books here that I
Oh, yeah.
wrote, I use that concept in those
Yeah.
two books to have a fictional component, and then
Yeah.
the security lessons I wanted the audience to learn from it, and that fictional component has evolved to the point that it's turned
Mhm.
into a screenplay, and
Oh,
so
oh, wow.
yeah, so I've got another book or two in mind, but it's become a real passion of mine to, and then a graphic novel, hopefully. So anyway, stay
Oh, that's
tuned.
fantastic. That's exciting.
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
stay tuned. That's a
Okay.
personal goal of mine. So you know, you got to have your outside interest
Yeah.
as well. So
Well, that's great. Tom, I greatly appreciate your time. This has been fantastic.
well, thank you very much. I absolutely enjoyed being with you. Sounds like we could grab a beer and cry
Yeah.
over them of all the mistakes and the money we've spent learning all this stuff.
Yeah.
So if anybody gets a little nugget, all right, take it and run with it.
Yeah. Well, thanks again, and we'll talk soon.
All righty.
All right. See ya.
Bye.